Hey everybody, how's it going? Corrodor here, keeping it tanky in Raid Shadow Legends. Guys, I saw that they're doing the summon pool for the Dwarf Faction Unity Champion. I thought what would be fun is to look at the top 5 most wanted non-void Dwarf legendaries in my opinion. I'm also not going to include the Faction Unity champion simply because I want to keep it as standard as possible. So at number 5, I am going to choose Samar Gemcursed. I know that this legendary is not highly rated in the community overall. Either you love him or you hate him, or you use him for just one thing, and that is a Bommel champion. I am looking seriously favorably towards this guy. He is in the summon pool, so I'm hoping I get him. But on the A1, attacks one enemy, heals by 15% of the damage inflicted if this champion has 50% HP or less. Fills this champion's turn meter by 15% if he has more than 50% HP. Timid the Fool has a similar A1 where it's conditional whether it heals or turn meter fills, but I like that kind of an A1 where it does whatever you need it to.
Yo, rescue bag!
And he's HP based, so he's going to be tanky, which we love on this channel. On the A2, attacks one enemy, inflicts bonus damage equal to the difference in HP percentage levels between this champion and the target. 1% damage for every 1% difference. Inflicts bonus damage equal to the difference in number of buffs on this champion and the target as well. 10% for each buff. I have heard that this move is underwhelming. However, I can't see this move being bad. The amount of damage increase baked into this skill, as well as the 20% that you're getting from books, I can't see it sucking. I really can't. So basically, you would want to keep him as high HP as possible. Building him in probably triple immortal gear is what I would probably think would be best. Either that or regen and immortal. On the A3, attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance when booked of stealing 2 random buffs before attacking. Places an extra hit on enemies that have any buffs left. This is a very strong skill for wave-based content and potentially PvP because stealing buffs is powerful. And even though it's just 2 random buffs, it's an AoE. That's going to be a lot of extra damage, punishing them for having more than 2 buffs on them at the same time. Then the passive is where it gets really good for Bommel. At the start of each round, places block damage on this champion for 1 turn. And then the active effect on a 4-turn cooldown will block incoming damage and place block damage on this champion for 1 turn when they receive a hit that would drop their HP below 30%. That is a very similar active effect to the Cheshire Cat that was recently released. And that passive is incredible. If you've been watching Felrus's channel at all, he uses the cat a lot, and that passive saves him and wins him arena fights a lot. I also know that this passive makes Samar a good champion to fight Bommel, because he can't die if he's not taking damage. I would love to have this champion on my account, especially because right now it's the Dark Fae rotation, and I won't be able to progress any further because I can't get past hard mode Bommel. He's also got HP by 30% in all battles. Number 4 on the list is going to be Molly Tankard. Excellent reviver, excellent protector, and control champion all rolled up into one. Very powerful. I wish I had her. On the A1, attacks one enemy, damage increases by 50% if the target is under an HP burn. I mean, yeah, I would love to do 50% extra damage for having the enemy under a debuff that does more damage. Why not? A2, places a provoke on all enemies for 1 turn, has a 50% chance of placing a provoke for 2 turns instead. Places a 30% reflect damage buff on this champion for 2 turns as well. So this is a great skill for controlling because, as I've discussed on my mythical tier list video, check that out if you hadn't already, placing a provoke is very strong because you don't have to worry about affinity, which will save you a lot of headache. This is also a really good skill for Hydra and Magma Dragon. The thing you have to watch out for in Hydra though is because the reflect damage is only on this champion, so she could become a target for the Head of Mischief. A3 revives an ally with 50% turn meter and 50% HP, places a block damage on that ally for 1 turn, books down to a 4-turn cooldown. That is a very nice revive because not only are you bringing them back,
Rise.
but you're protecting them for a turn with that block damage. It's very strong. Then on the passive, fills the turn meter of all allies by 15% when this champion is hit, or 25% when she is hit by a boss. Books down to a 1-turn cooldown, so it's only going to happen once in between each of her turns. That's okay though, because this is still fantastic. We love additional turn meter fill, especially because she's going to be provoking, which means she's going to be getting hit a lot. And with the reflect damage, you're punishing them with more damage, as well as boosting the turn meter of all allies. Esme, the recent fusion, has a similar passive to this, where she fills the turn meter of the ally with the highest attack by 50% on a 1-turn cooldown. This is all allies by half that amount. That is huge. I've heard Felrus talk about how nice Esme's passive is, and if that is great, then a passive that affects all allies the exact same way is going to be all that better. The only thing I wish is that she brought HP burn into her kit in order to take advantage of this A1 without needing setup from another champion. I would kill to have this little dwarf on my account.
I love you. I love you so much it hurts.
Great base stats, great kit. Number 3, I'm going to put Underpriest Brogni. I have been wrecked by Brogni's in Arena because of the way he interacts with shields. On the A1, attacks one enemy, has a 60% chance of placing an HP burn for 2 turns. A2, attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance when booked of removing 1 random buff from all enemies, so a random buff strip. Also has a chance of removing 1 random debuff from all allies and increasing the value of shield buffs on all allies by 30% of the damage inflicted. So you actually want to build this guy as a nuker, which sucks because he has abysmal base attack, but 30% of the damage inflicted can still be huge, because I'm pretty sure even though his base attack is abysmal, he actually has really strong multiple. So you could potentially build him for some good damage. On the A3, places a block debuffs and increase attack on all allies for 2 turns. Also places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns equal to 30% of this champion's max HP. This shield buff cannot be removed, so it is protected, which is excellent for places like Scarab King, where your buffs are constantly in danger of being stripped.
It's better. Now I'm free. Now I'm moving.
Bommel is another instance, because he will try to strip your buffs. Celestial Griffin will do the same thing. Anywhere where buffs have a chance of being stolen, this will be great because it's protection that cannot be removed. But it gets even better with the passive. Whenever an ally under a shield buff is attacked, reflects 25% of the damage inflicted on the shield back to the attacker. Also heals that ally by 25% of the damage inflicted on the shield. If there are multiple champions in the team with the skill, only one will activate. Thank the good Lord, because I've gone up against teams with multiple Brognis, and if that passive stacked, I would probably lose it.
A march of grief! Sad Man's Parade!
Has all ally resistance in Doom Tower by 60, which can be really nice, again, for Scarab, because even though that shield is protected, the block debuffs and increase attack are not. I would love to have this champion. He would be great to pair with Geomancer in like a Chimera or Demon Lord situation, where you're taking a lot of damage, so those shields would be reflecting and healing, and when the shields are gone, then Geo's going to be putting in the work.
Put in the work, so you know how much it's worth.
With his passive, so you're constantly reflecting damage back to a boss. I wish I had this dwarf on my account so bad. Number 2 on the list is Trunda. Now I know the majority of people in the community are going to be like, why on earth is that even a debate? That's because I don't like champions that are busted. However, I need to progress my Hydra, and this is the best way to do it, so I will still take her. She is the queen of damage in Hydra, and she's solid in Arena as well. A1 attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 60% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. A2 attacks one enemy, then attacks all other enemies with a second hit, dealing 60% of the damage inflicted from the first and ignoring 50% of the target's defense. Only the second hit of the skill ignores defense. The second hit is always normal, so it cannot be critical, but it also cannot be weak. That is such a strong move, and that move right there is the reason she is so strong for Hydra. You pair her with some reset champions and just use that skill over and over and over again. It's scary how much damage this champion can put out in Hydra. She outdamages mythicals. That should tell you something. The A3 attacks all enemies enemies, has a 70% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. Also places HP burn for 2 turns. Places an extra hit on enemies not under stun. Both hits of this skill deal 50% more damage to Stone Skin, which means she's just as busted for Arena for busting through that Stone Skin. She is unbelievable. This champion wrecks me. I am scared of Atrenda, I will be honest. Then the passive. This champion's attack increases by 10% for each stun or HP burn this champion places on enemies. Stacks up to 50% per round. This champion's speed increases by 5 for each enemy currently under a burn or stun. Only counts active. The great thing about this, she doesn't have to place the burns or stuns to get the speed increase. However, if you want the attack increase, which was what would be more important, she is the one that needs to be placing the burns. That shouldn't be a problem. She does so much damage that you can afford to build her with accuracy, and you will still see obscene amounts of damage from this champion. Anyone in their right mind that doesn't have this champion would want her. There is only one dwarf who is more desirable, and we're about to get to them. On to the last slot, number 1, to no one's surprise whatsoever, Newt. My gosh, Newt is so good. If you've played this game for longer than a month, I guarantee you know who Newt is, and you know how fantastic he is. The king of PvE right here. A1, attack one enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 100% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 15%. If the target's turn meter is not decreased, each hit has a 100% chance of placing a freeze debuff on the target for 1 turn instead. This guy can be used everywhere. It's insane. I love this champion. I wish I had this champion. Anyone who empowers this champion before they get 4 of them is on crack. The A2 attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance when booked of placing a decrease attack and a weaken on all enemies for 2 turns. Also places a counter attack buff on this champion for 2 turns. This champion has almost everything. The only thing that can make this move even more busted was if it was a decreased defense instead of a decreased attack. If he had that, he would officially be, I think, the strongest non-void in the game for all content. But even at that, as he is insane. Then we get to the piece de resistance.
And now, for the piece de resistance.
The A3 attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit decreases the target's defense by 3%, stacks up to 30%. Each hit also heals this champion by 30% of the damage dealt. And just to top it all off, damage is based on enemy max HP. Enemy max HP is the single greatest way to do damage to bosses. It's obscene how much different damage is calculated as soon as enemy max HP is taken into consideration. They can have horrible stats, they can have bad multipliers, but just because enemy max HP is baked into the damage, it's fantastic. Then the passive, when counterattacking, deals 100% of damage instead of 75%, so he doesn't even get a damage decrease for counterattacking. And that A1 is so strong that, yeah, why not? Newt is the king of this game. You cannot have enough of him. Period. End of discussion. I want this champion so bad. Literally, I would trade my first mythical for a Newt. I wouldn't even think about it. The dwarves are such a strong faction. I would love having any of those 5 champions. Guys, let me know in the comments, what dwarf would you love to have the most? Feel free to mention voids or mythicals. Obviously, all of them are good, and the majority of the standard legendaries are good. Let me know in the comments if you do the Prism Summon, who do you get? Maybe I'll release a video in the upcoming days talking about who I got. I might even pull them on screen. Who knows? Let me know in the comments if that's something you want to see. Guys, I have been Corrodor. Enjoy your life and stay tanky.